Hello, today we are going to learn about file input and output, often called file I/O in Python. So far, we have been working with data inside the Python environment, but what if we want to save that data to a file or read data from a file? That's where file I/O comes in. It allows us to interact with external files, store information, and retrieve it later. Let's start with the basics. First, to write to a file, we use the open function. When opening a file, we specify two things: the file name, the mode in which we want to open the file. For example, let's say we have a list of car brands: Kia, Porsche, and Maserati. To save this list to a file, we first open a file called test.txt in write mode using W. Write mode means that if the file already exists, it will erase all previous data and start fresh. Then we close the file after writing to ensure all data is properly saved. But wait, we open the file, but we haven't actually written anything to it yet. To write the items from our list into the file, we use a for loop to go through each item and add it to the file. But there's a small issue. If we write the list as it is, everything will be squeezed together without spaces. To fix this, we add +n at the end of each item. This adds a new line, so each item appears on a separate line in the file. Now let's do an example with numbers. We'll create a list of numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Open a file in write mode. Loop through the numbers and write each one to the file, followed by +n, so they appear on separate lines. Once the loop is done, close the file. Now let's move on to reading a file. So far, we've written data to a file, but how do we read it back? For that, we open the file again, but this time in read mode using R. Then, we use the read function to read the entire file content. Since we can't see the file itself, we print the result to check if the data was written and read correctly. Now here's something important to remember. If we open a file in W mode and write new data, it erases everything that was in the file before. For example, if our file originally had 1, 2, 3, and then we write 4, the file will now only contain 4. The old data is gone. But what if we don't want to erase the old data? What if we just want to add new data? That's when we use append mode, or A. When a file is opened in append mode, new data is added at the end of the existing content instead of replacing it. For example, if the file originally had 1, 2, 3, and we write 4 in append mode, the file will now contain 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's do a real-world example. We will create a list of 3 famous U.S. presidents: George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Thomas Jefferson. Open a file in write mode. Write each name to the file, adding +n at the end. Print the names to confirm they are written. Now let's read the file to verify the data was saved correctly. We open the file in read mode. Use read to fetch the content and print it. Now let's try the same thing with famous baseball players. We will create a list of Babe Ruth, Jackie Robinson, and Lou Gehrig. Open a file in write mode. Write each name to the file with +n. Print the names to confirm they are saved. Now let's read the file and print its contents. Next, let's practice appending to a file. We will add a new name to the testlist.txt file. We open the file in append mode, write Derek Jeter, and close the file. Since we used append mode, the previous data remains, and Derek Jeter is simply added at the end. Finally, let's check the contents of the file again to confirm that the new data has been added. Today we learned how to write to a file using W mode, how to read from a file using R mode, how to append to a file using A mode. That's it for today's lesson. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.